5.6 goes over factoring trinomials in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. When we are factoring these trinomials, we're going to just go over where a is 1 today. You want to try to find the factors of your c term that add up to be your b term, especially when a is equal to 1 within your polynomial. Your a is always the term in front of that x squared. Your b is always the term in front of the x, and the c is always your constant. So whenever the term in front of the x squared, so the coefficient of x squared is 1, you're going to use the method that we're going to go over today. So with this, again, find the factors of your c term, so that constant, the one that doesn't have a letter attached to it, to add up to your b term. Once you find those factors, you will separate into two separate parentheses, that x plus or minus a number times x plus or minus a number. And sometimes you'll work with different variables, and you would just replace the x with that variable. If we look at example 1a, we have x squared plus 9x plus 18. You want to find the factors of 18 that add up to be 9. So we can find all of them. We have 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. Now that 9 is positive, that 18 is positive, which means all of these numbers that we have are going to be positive numbers. So if we add these up, the 1 and the 18 gives us 19, the 2 and the 9 gives us 11, and the 3 and 6 gives us 9. We're looking for the one that gives us the same coefficient of that b term, so that 9 is our winner. So we're going to separate this to be x plus 3 times x plus 6. This will be our answer, and then we're done. With all of these, you can take your factored form and FOIL it out. If you get what you started with, so like if you did the x plus 3 times x plus 6, and you simplified it and got the x squared plus 9x plus 18, you know that your answer in factored form is correct. For example B, we're given x squared minus 24x minus 2x minus 24. That 24, you have factors of 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. You have to end with a negative when you multiply these. So one of these numbers is going to be negative, one of them is going to be positive. To know which number is going to be negative or positive, you want to look at that b term. That b term is negative, so your bigger number is going to be negative out of your factors. So the 1 and the 24, it would be a negative 24. The 2 and the 12, it would be a negative 12. The 3 and the 8, it would be a negative 8. And the 4 and the 6, it would be a negative 6. You want to find the two factors that combine to give you a negative 2. 1 minus 24 is negative 23. 2 minus 12 is negative 10. 3 minus 8 is negative 5. 4 minus 6 is negative 2. Again, we're looking for a negative 2. We have our negative 2, so the 4 minus 6 is going to be our two factors that we're going to work with. So we're going to separate this. Our variable is x squared, so one's going to have an x, one's going to have an x. We're going to have a positive 4 with one of those x's and a minus 6 with the other. So we just have x plus 4 times x minus 6. For example 2, just continuing with this, for a, we have x squared plus 4x plus 3. So again, we're going to find the factors of that 3 that add up to be 4. We have 1 and 3, and that's it. 3 is positive, so both of these are going to have the same sign. The 4 is positive, so they're both going to be positive. 1 plus 3 is 4. We found our factors, so we're going to have x plus 1 times x plus 3. For example B, we have x squared plus 3x minus 10. So again, you want to find your factors of that negative 10. We have 1 and 10, 2 and 5. We are ending with a positive 3 when we add these. So our bigger number is going to have to be positive, which makes our smaller number negative. So that way when we multiply these, we get a negative 10, but when we add them, we get a positive 3. The negative 1 plus 10 is 9. Negative 2 plus 5 is 3. We're looking for a 3. We have a 3. So that negative 2 and that negative 5 are our factors that we're going to use when we separate this. So we're going to have x minus 2 times x plus 5. For example C, we're given a squared minus 5a plus 6. So this positive 6 that we have here, we're going to have factors of 1 and 6 as well as 2 and 3. The 6 is positive, which means when we multiply, our two signs have to be the same. So they're either both going to be positive or they're both going to be negative. That b term is a negative 5. So that tells us that they're both going to be negative when we multiply in order to get that positive 6. So it's going to be a negative 1 and a negative 6, a negative 2 and a negative 3 for our factors. If we combine these, the negative 1 minus 6 is negative 7, negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. We're looking for a negative 5 here. We have a negative 5, so this is going to factor out to be x minus 2 times x minus 3. And again, you can always check your factored form by FOILing it out or multiplying it out and seeing if you get the same thing that you started with. If you do, then you know that your answer is correct. The next part of your lesson from 5.86 goes over factoring your trinomials in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is not equal to 1. So it's something other than 1. When we are doing this, we are going to use a method to where we multiply the first, that a term, and that last term by that c, the c term. So a times c. We're going to find the factors of a times c that add up to be that b term. When we find those factors, we're going to replace that bx with the sum of those two terms who has the same variable. From there, we're going to factor by grouping. So if we look at example 3a, we have 2x squared plus 9x plus 4. With this, you have an a of 2, a c of 4. So we're going to do 2 times 4, which gives us 8. The factors of 8 that add up to be 9 are 1 and 8. So this is going to factor out or simplify to be 2x squared. Our two factors were the 1 and the 8. So it's going to be plus x plus 8x, and then we keep that 4. From here we have 4 terms, so we are going to factor by grouping. We're going to set a set of parentheses on the first two terms, a set of parentheses on the last two terms. For the first two terms, your greatest common factor between those two is x, so we factor out an x. For the second two that you have in the parentheses, we have an 8x and a 4. Their greatest common factor is a positive 4. So we factor out the x. We have 2x plus 1 left. We factor out the 4. We have 2x plus 1 left. From here, those two sets of parentheses are the same, so we are going to rewrite one of them to represent both, and then form another with the x and the positive 4. So we have 2x plus 1 times x plus 4. For example B, we have 2x squared plus 5x minus 12. We're going to take the 2 and that negative 12, and we will multiply. We get negative 24. We're looking for the factors of negative 24 that add up to be a positive 5. If we had a negative 3 and a positive 8, if we add them, we get 5. If we multiply them, we get negative 24. So we will factor this to be 2x squared minus 3x plus 8x minus 12. From here, since we have the 4 terms, we're going to factor by grouping. Instead of the first set of parentheses around the 2x squared and the negative 3x, then the second around the 8x and the negative 12. From here, we're going to factor out an x from the first set of parentheses. We'll factor out a 4 from the second set of parentheses. When we do this, we're going to have x times 2x minus 3. And then we're going to have that 4 times 2x minus 3. Once again, your two parentheses are the same, so we'll rewrite it once. And then we'll form another with the x plus 4. So 2x minus 3 times 2x plus 4. With example C, we have 6w squared minus w minus 15. So we're going to start this one by doing this 6 times the negative 15. We get a negative, 6 times 5 is 30, and then 3 and 6 is 9, so that's negative 90. So we're looking for the factors of negative 90 that add up to be a negative 1. If we had 9 and 10, 9 times 10 is 90. If we had a negative 1, that 10 is going to be negative, and we combine them. So this is going to factor a little bit by having the 6x or 6w squared plus 9w minus 10w minus 15. Put parentheses around the first two, put parentheses around the last two. Factor out a 3w from the first set of parentheses. Factor out a negative 5 from the last set. So this is going to be 3w times 2w plus 3 minus 5 times 2w plus 3. Your two sets of parentheses are the same here. So this is going to give you 2w plus 3 times 3w minus 5. For example, 4a, we have 2x squared plus 5x minus 3. So for this one, we're going to take the 2 and multiply by the negative 3. We get negative 6. The factors of negative 6 that add up to be a positive 5 are going to be a negative 1 and a positive 6. So this is going to factor out to be the 4 terms that you have. So 2x squared minus x plus 6x minus 3. You have 4 terms factored by grouping. Parentheses around the first two, parentheses around the last two. Factor out your greatest common factor from each. So you're going to factor out an x from the first. You're going to factor out a 3 from the second. This is going to give us x times 2x minus 1 plus 3 times 2x minus 1. From here, this is just simplifying to be 2x minus 1 times x plus 3. For example B, we have 3x squared minus 11x plus 6. So we're going to do the 3 times 6. We get 18. Your factors of 18 that add up to be a negative 11 are 2 and 9. Both of these would have to be negative in order to give you that negative 11. So this is going to factor to be 3x squared minus 2x minus 9x plus 6. Since we have the 4 terms, we're going to continue by factoring by grouping. We'll factor out an x from the first set of parentheses and factor out a negative 3 from the second. So this leaves us with x times 3x minus 2 minus 3 times 3x minus 2. From here, this is going to leave us with 3x minus 2 times x minus 3. For example C, we have 6m squared plus 17m plus 10. So we're going to do 6 times 10, we get 60. We want the factors of 60 that add up to be the 17. So if we have a 5 and 12, 5 plus 12 is 17, 5 times 12 is 60. So this is going to separate into, or expand into 6m squared plus 5m plus 12m plus 10. Since we have the 4 terms, we're going to factor by grouping. We'll factor out an m from the first set. We'll factor out a 2 from the second. So this is m times 6m plus 5 plus 2 times 6m plus 5. Your two parentheses are the same, so this gives us 6m plus 5 times m plus 2. For our last set of examples, we are just factoring each of these polynomials. For example, 5a, we are given x to the 4th power minus 9. So with this, because it's x to the 4th power, you can still take the square root of it, as well as taking the square root of that 9. So if our a is x squared, our b is 3, and this is a difference of squares, this is going to give us x squared minus 3 times x squared plus 3. You would not be able to go any further with this since that 3 is not a perfect square. So you leave your answer as the x squared minus 3 times x squared plus 3. And for example B, we are given 8 to the power of y to the power of 8 minus 14 to the y to the power of 4 plus 49. if we took the square root of that y to the 8th power and we took the square root of that 49, we would have an a of y to the 4th power and a b of 7. The sign in the middle term is negative, so if we did 2 times 7 times y to the 4th, we get the negative 14 y to the 4th. So because these two are the same, we can take a minus b and square it. So this is going to give us y to the 4th minus 7 squared.